Hi, welcome to Perfectly Imperfect Me 365. I am your host, Rachel, and today I have a beautiful couple that I was so fortunate to meet. Well, Danielle, I met just a few weeks ago, and I feel like I've known you for my life, but I'm just going to give you a little introduction to my listeners, and then we'll go into just your story. But I want to introduce Bryan and Danielle DeCobo, and they are a mission-driven couple whose lives blend advocacy, healing, leadership, and love. Bryan, an attorney, rare disease advocate, and founder of the Coats Plus Foundation, leverages his legal background, storytelling, and national network to advance gene editing research for children battling Coats Plus syndrome. Danielle, a pediatric nurse with nearly a decade of experience at Joe DiMaggio Children's Hospital, brings the heart of the mission. A devoted mother and compassionate caregiver, she has supported countless families through their most difficult moments. Their journey with their sons, Liam and Ethan, transformed them into fierce champions for rare disease families. Even after losing their youngest son, Ethan, they continued forward with courage, purpose, and an unshakable commitment to creating change. Together, Bryan and Danielle use their story to inspire resilience, mobilize communities, and fight for hope. So, thank you guys so much for joining me. And, it's interesting because when Danielle and I met at this retreat that I did a podcast on and spoke about it, it was literally life changing for me. But what even happened after that is somewhat hearing a little bit of the story. Like, I didn't really know at breakfast when we were talking that day. I was just listening and kind of eavesdropping, like you were talking about, like what you're doing with your son and what you guys, and I just heard like rare genetic disease. And it kind of piques my interest because I mean, I come from a father who's a physician. My stepson really always wanted to do genetic gene, like that changing of like what the fancy word for it, which I don't know, but along with what you
CRISPR.
guys are, right? And but I never really heard more until you sent that mess text in the group. And like my heart just like dropped because I'm like, how did I not know that? How could I have not gotten that piece? Like, I felt like I walked away and we like have been sisters for life. It was the weirdest thing, right? And so I am so grateful that both of you are here today because I think not only is your stories about your loss and the grief and the sadness, but also like what you're doing about it, but more importantly, how you navigated and continue to probably navigate this loss. So
Right.
I'm kind of just open it up to you and like tell us a little bit of stories and I might stop in and ask some questions.
Thank you for that intro. That was very sweet and it touches both of our hearts and we're very sentimental. So if we start tearing up over here, I know it may be mutual, but
I totally.
um what the piece you touched on about we talked a lot and I shared some, but there's always that fine line about how much do you share with new people versus how much do you keep? And then on it's a fine line because it's heavy subject matter and not everyone's ready to hear it.
Mm,
And I also, can spiral at times if I let it all out too
yeah, of
quickly. I have to feel safe with the person, which I do
course.
with you, obviously, and being a counselor helps tremendously. So I know you can go to that level and handle that type of pain. Um, but it's a wild story. My husband's a great storyteller, so I defer to him a lot, and then I like to fill in the pieces.
Sounds great.
Um,
She's
so
she's a much better
Teamwork.
storyteller than she gives herself credit for. And I'm proud of Danielle for so much that how we've evolved in our own beings and as a couple throughout this journey. And it's we're told that for instance even the divorce rates are extremely high, and we found a way to overcome that.
Yep.
And and I think that for the listeners out there, just no matter what they're walking through, it's just about finding a way. And if you're a married couple, there's difficulties and challenges, but if you can find a way to do it together as partners, it's the only way you have a chance sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think to your comment earlier where you were discussing with Danielle how I walked away from this not really knowing the full understanding of the story is Danielle and I realize we're kind of in a unique situation where we're still what's difficult is we're still these people that enjoy things in life and
Right.
have silly jokes and have playful banter, and yes, there's this deeply sad component to us, and then
Right.
there's also this mission driven component. And it's kind of, I know that the way that people engage with us changes when they
Mm,
hear the story.
Right.
You're having this fun banter, people talk about life, and the inevitable question comes up when you're getting to know somebody. Oh, do you have any children?
right.
Right.
And for us, that's a very difficult question to answer, and I have to find a better way to answer it because we're in a place where we lost our 4-year-old son a year
Mm,
ago.
right.
And do I tell people, oh, I have one child, and I feel like I'm not honoring Ethan because I have two children.
Of
And if
course.
he's not physically here, he's still with me. And then I say, oh, I'll tell people I have two children, just, oh, how old? Then well, it's 8-year-old and a forever four.
Right.
And it's all of a sudden, inevitably, this like anchor of like depression is coming in the conversation that's being dropped. And then it manifests into where people engage in our story and people are curious, but it does suck up all the air out of the room. And
Right.
I know time and time again we tell this, and there's times where it's very therapeutic, but there's other times where it feels like we're just sitting in this wallow.
Mm,
So that's why it's difficult for us to kind of, I'm just in the habit of sharing at this point. And But sometimes we just want to enjoy the game on TV
of
or
course.
the company we keep, or maybe talking about some ideas about the world and in friendly company. It's difficult sometimes for us to kind of just share so authentically because it does have a series of effects about
Right.
how we're treated within that conversation. We don't want to chill conversation. We want to, and because we're interested in people too,
Of
it's not
course.
all about us. We want to learn
Yeah.
about other people, and I
Yeah.
like hearing their stories and learning, and that's a way of us connecting as people. And
Yeah.
sometimes the story kind of creates other unanticipated consequences.
That's so sad for me to hear because, like, obviously, as a mom, right? Like, I can't imagine what it would be like to lose a child. And also, as a mom, as a therapist, as a friend, like, you know, if they're sharing a story, right, and they're sharing their loss because they chose to, right,
Mhm.
then there's got to be some process for the couple, the person who's sharing it that isn't meant to bring anybody else down. Like that's not your intention at all, right? Like you,
Right.
somebody asks
Right.
a question, you tell them, right? And so,
Right.
I mean, I that's why I just am so appreciative that you guys are here to talk about it because I think that it's so important for people who, my cousin died when she was young. She was 40. Okay. She left behind two little kids. I saw my aunts and uncles go through a loss of bearing their child you know, and she had an open heart surgery and a heart transplant. And you don't ever recover from that. You just learn to dance differently with this situation that you're given. And I say dance because you have those two choices to either sit in the sorrow, which who wants to create a life for Liam that way or yourselves, right? But also to honor Ethan and then, or to navigate, like, how do I learn to dance in that horrendous storm and make what I have today, what it is today, what it needs to be? Because, you know,
Yeah,
so
that's exactly it. That's you touched on it. It's the deciding factor of what do you do with it now that this is the course that you've been given for X amount of reasons. You
right,
could go down any spiritual route, and there's a million whys.
right,
But one thing my husband helps me to navigate is we only have so much control, or we have control over how we react.
correct,
If nothing else, that is the singular most important part of the whole story.
right,
So it's a decision every day. Do we wallow in this pity and self-despair? And yes, of course we cry
of
and
course,
holidays are tough.
sure,
And speaking about it, even like this it's like it gets, it stirs memories and
of
emotions.
course,
And I have to be ready for the aftermath of it.
yeah,
But it also gets easier talking about it. And I feel like we honor his life by educating, by advocating, by spreading awareness, by, our foundation that we created through him. But every day, like anyone else, even who has not gone through something like this, you have the decision, do I wake up and continue
right,
to live a full life? and honor him, or do
Right.
I choose not to
Right.
every day?
And
Yeah.
I, and I think something she touched upon is something that's definitely changed our world. Um, I wasn't terribly spiritual or even understands really a sense of what spirituality was.
Yeah.
Danielle, when we received the diagnosis and we're going down the path, I immediately kind of stepped into the masculine where we could define it, we could attack it, let's
We'll
figure
fix
this
it.
out, let's roll. And
Right.
and Danielle went very much into a spiritual sense in the feminine. And ultimately, and this is what's interesting, is the masculine and feminine, so much in this world nowadays, they want them to compete, but that's not how it is. They have to complement each other.
Right.
And when things are in harmony, that's when you could really move forward. And when I was grinding and doing what I have to do, is almost these whispers of the universe brought to me through Danielle's voice, because she started diving into these different senses, and I started saying,
I
this is
love
interesting. It's
that.
like the universe is whispering to me, like, hey,
Yeah.
Brian. And finally, it's like I get it.
Right.
And it's there's been a transformation in myself and my wife, really understanding the depth of what that spiritual sense is.
Right.
And we're in a place where we don't believe in coincidences. There's alignment. They're quite literally as are universal principles. I'm doing a deep dive on physics now.
Quantum physics.
Quantum
Right.
physics. Let me tell you something. If you want to believe that there's an interconnected universe and a higher being, learn more about physics. It's going to bring you even closer to spirituality, which
Yeah.
almost seems
Counterintuitive.
counterintuitive, but it's fascinating, and it reinforces the things that we're learning in one state. Here's universal principles that say, no, no, this is actually accurate.
Right.
Um, and in learning that and putting ourselves at a higher frequency and surrendering to the universe,
Right.
submitting to God, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You start walking a path that was designed for you.
Right.
And that's the experience Danielle and I have. It's almost as if when everything happens,
Well, how long ago?
we,
Let me ask you this.
yeah,
How long ago did this? Because I know Liam is, how old is he now?
Eight and a
He's
half
8.5,
now.
right?
Diagnosed with four.
He was diagnosed at 4. Okay.
Four
So you
in
had just got,
2021.
was Ethan even born? You had just
Yes,
had him.
it was nothing prenatally that we could have known. I
Right.
had standard care,
Right.
th there was nothing to test for because we didn't know what we were looking for.
Right. And they
yeah,
don't
this
typically do t genetic testing like,
Beyond the standard,
yeah.
no.
and the way it was described to me, imagine you have a whole series of Encyclopedia Britannicas, right? And when they test in the general panel, it's going to one of those Britannicas and maybe pulling out a page and
Mm,
like, of that. But once there's certain markers that they know to be more particular to look for certain
okay.
things. Okay.
Okay.
So this disease has only been, so let me take a step back to go forward. Both our children have been diagnosed with a life-shortening rare disease
Mm,
called Coates plus syndrome. Okay. This disease has only been recently understood since 2012, where Dr. Yannick Crow out of the United Kingdom linked
wow.
this genetic mutation with this particular disease. We're starting to learn more as we interconnect with other parents. This disease wasn't even tested for when Ethan was born, which was our second child. Okay. Now, both of our children were born premature with growth restriction. It turns out that's related to the disease that we learned later on, because when a woman's pregnant, she's creating not just the baby, she's also creating the placenta. And the
Right.
placenta is not the mother's DNA, it's the baby's DNA with the very same genetic mutation that had a certain output within that organ that led to premature birth, that led to growth restriction.
Wow.
So Danielle and I had a feeling of, this happened once. We were told it was an aberration. This will never happen again. Bang. It happens again, the same dramatic entry a second time. And we were said, what is going on here? Is there something wrong with Danielle's body? Is there,
Mhm.
and we got away from that narrative because that's not healthy when we don't know. And thank God we got away from that, because
Right.
as a mother, she had feelings of what is wrong with me
Right,
at
of
the time.
course.
And it's like
I
not
totally
her. It's
understand.
just the way our DNA ended up working together. It wasn't until Liam was 4, Ethan was 1.
Mm,
And we felt like we're battling this boogeyman because there's other stuff that's happening that we don't understand. And then Liam had a seizure. And it was probably the most horrifying thing I've ever seen.
A
But
full
through that,
grand
we
mal
ended,
seizure.
A
yeah.
10-minute long
Oh
tonic-clonic
my God.
seizure in our living room. I had to dig pieces of food chunks out of his
Oh
mouth,
my gosh.
hysterics. I timed it. I knew they would ask how long. We had our neighbor who's a nurse practitioner come over. It was
Wow.
horrific. And I've seen many seizures, but he was unresponsive. I
Oh,
When
mean, it was
when
terrifying.
it's your child seeing deviated eyes in that state, it's absolutely horrible.
I can
Um,
understand that. My son
and
has
and
had absence seizures. We found that at 9 years
Oh,
old.
yeah.
see,
Not fun. Not fun.
um, so as you would know, then through that process, they take an MRI,
Right.
um, and to see if anything's going on cognitively. And lo and behold, when they ran an MRI of my child's brain, they observed calcifications and cysts, a completely extreme,
Wow.
abnormal uh, MRI came back. And at that point in time, we were trying to understand what it was. There was a litany of tests. And then the day came where I got a call from our doctor. And mind you, Danielle happens to be a pediatric nurse in the very same institution we get our care,
Right.
and she was working that day. But when Danielle, so I got the call and I
Right. She was
speaking to the
working.
doctor, and I asked the doctor, I said, "Hey, is this the kind of?" She said, "I think you should come. I think you should come in." And I said, "Is this the kind of thing where Danielle could come and meet with us and go back to work, or is this the kind of thing where I should make some other arrangements?" And she said, "Brian, I think you should make other arrangements."
Oh,
And I
God.
said, "Do we have a diagnosis?" And she just said, "Brian, you guys need to come in." So I called her supervisor at the time and I said, um, Danielle's got to meet with me at the doctor and she needs to have the rest of the day off. And they moved some things around and lo and behold, we met at Dr. Arroyo's office and she read the diagnosis and Danielle knew right away and I just saw her collapse.
Mm.
And here I'm just trying to be the strong one in this moment because I'm the husband, the father, the rock. Yeah, I'm supposed to protect, provide, and lead, and I'm in this hopeless state in this moment.
Yeah.
And then we kind of all thought it at the same time. We looked at each other. We said, well, what about Ethan? And we already knew.
Wow.
And lo and behold, both kids were diagnosed with this very same life-shortening rare disease. Um, the next day, I said, you know what? We got a diagnosis. Let's roll. Very next day, I put something on Facebook. Hey, this is where we're at. I don't know anything about this rare disease world. You know, it's just like you're dropped on another planet, and it
Right.
said you don't have a map and figure out the terrain. And but you got to get started somewhere. You're not going to figure out the terrain if you're silent. So
Right.
we just put it out there, and all of a sudden people started coming back to us with stuff, and I started kind of figuring out the field.
Wow.
What is the National Institute of Health? What is National Organization of Rare Disease? What are, what's going on in science? And it was just a complete learning curve of these million and one things that rare disease families have to figure out on their own.
Mm.
And recently, several years clicked by. Recently, I just got back from a National Organization of Rare Disease Summit in DC. And let me tell you, it's a very lonely journey.
I can't even
But when
imagine.
I was able to step in that space and I see these other parents call from all across the nation that came to that room, and I realized, am I missing something? Am I not figuring something out? Where are the resources? And you realize, no,
There are
this
none.
is what it is. All these families have to figure it out on their own. The
Wow.
doctors don't know anything because it's not something that's study in medical school. And really, it's just the place we are at right now in society. We had a human genome project in the 90s, which was
Wow.
great. But now it creates other problems to solve because now we have an understanding of genetics. We have
Right.
understanding of these rare disease. And science, every day you're seeing really wonderful advancements in science. But a lot has to be done with the organization of the parents that are fighting for these children. And a lot has to be done with an access gap when it comes to funding for a lot of initiatives for rare disease cures and science.
Wow.
Um, but that's kind of
That's what led to the creation of our foundation,
Right.
Code Plus found Foundation, because we literally had nothing. When you Googled
I
there,
mean,
I
I've
don't
never even
think
heard of it.
Well, I mean,
no one had.
it
Most doctors haven't
it
either.
it's an unfortunate name for a disease because you Google Coats Plus and what comes up? Well, coats that are for sale plus this
Right.
person.
Right.
It's and the name of the disease, the origin source was there was a doctor Coates that discovered an eye disease with vascular malformations in the eyes,
Okay.
and they called that Coates disease. Then they found a child that they saw
Oh,
these eye abnormalities along with calcifications and cysts in the brain and said, "Oh, this must be a variation. Let's just call this Coates plus." It's
gotcha.
married by name only. It's two different genetic mutations, two different pathologies. So
Okay.
it has that unfortunate sense, and also an unfortunate sense that it's called Coates plus. So we're out there trying to make a distinction with this for people to raise awareness that hey, that this isn't, it's a noble cause giving homeless people coats on the streets, but
Right.
that's not our cause.
Right.
And to bring awareness to this disease is definitely a big part of our mission.
So now you've left the doctors, you've gone into fix it mode because you're the male brain and Danielle,
Mhm.
you're the female brain who's also probably very emotional. I can't even imagine. Like my brain would
Highly,
not be able to
highly.
function, right? I remember the day I got that diagnosis that my son had absence seizures, which he's actually outgrown, but my world changed. And I think at that time, knock on wood, he had never had a grand mal. He has not. And I remember my world changed, like how I watched him, what he was allowed to do, what he could do, what I was trying to not be a
Everything.
helicopter parent to let him do. And so that now changes, right? So here, how do you go home and have this discussion? They're not even old enough to
Hmm.
even understand what like
No,
a boo-boo is or what like
right,
short like a life shortening illness is.
right.
Well,
It's extremely tricky. It's
well,
actually
we
it's
have,
easier when what?
well, she asked how we'd have the conversation. We haven't had the conversation.
Yeah, and
He
Wow.
doesn't know he's sick. And
he knows he's different because he needs a walker to walk
Okay.
around school. He asks why he's not a normal kid and has to go to the hospital for infusions. So he's more and more aware, but he doesn't know that he's a life-shortening rare disease. He tried walking to school just yesterday by himself, which is miles away, but I let him go a few blocks because he wants this
Of
independence,
course.
especially when he sees it on in movies and TV now and wants to be like them, which is a new phenomenon.
Wow.
So it's a very delicate balance. It's it's tricky, but
Right.
he's
Well,
not
he's
aware.
still so young. It's not like he's a 15-year-old kid who would understand even like
Correct.
that. Like, but here I mean, he saw Ethan pass,
He did.
right? So
Yes.
unfortunately, death at a 7-year-old's age, right? Like they
And
don't
he
even, because I know
understood.
from a therapeutic standpoint, like most kids don't even understand the cognitive grasp of like death
right.
until they're at least like 12.
W-
We consulted a psychologist actually to ask the best route
So,
of dealing with that.
so a couple things here. First is we want him to maintain his innocence as long as possible.
Of course.
Um,
Mhm.
so we'll see how that goes. But number two, you're absolutely correct. When we knew Ethan's time was getting short, we consulted with a psychologist and we were told that you have to be direct. You can't use this flowery language. And so they could process it correctly. And I'll never forget that day that we were preparing him. We pulled him into our bedroom and my parents were with Ethan at the time and it just made sense for us to do it in that moment. And we put him on our bed. We said, Liam, we have to talk. Um, and we just kind of told him, we said, um, Ethan's body, Ethan's sick. His body's going to stop working and he's going to die.
Mm,
And what was interesting is his reaction was he just wanted to help.
of course.
And in his kind of immature mind and just trying to process, he says, well, you know, what if we go on a spaceship
Of
and
course.
we get Ethan and then, then he'll be okay.
Right.
I said, it doesn't work like that, Liam. He says, well, what about a portal?
Right.
Why don't we could go through I'll go through the portal and I'll grab him and he'll be okay. And then we said, it doesn't work that way. And something he's never done before, he says, I need to go outside. And then I want to go outside with him. He goes, no, Daddy, just me.
Wow.
And then he goes over to the side. Of course, I was watching him on the Ring camera to make sure he's okay. And he's picking up rocks. I've never seen him do this, but he's just like, Ethan's gonna be okay. He's throwing these rocks in the pool. And then he comes in the house and he says, Ethan's gonna be okay. I threw rocks in the pool and he's gonna be okay.
Right.
And just seeing him process through this was very hard.
I'm sure.
And then a few months passed by, about 2 to 3 months, and it was time.
Mm.
And we let him know, like, hey, Ethan's got to die, and it's time to say goodbye. And we were in hospice on the time at home,
Right.
and he said his goodbyes, but we also kind of wanted him out of the house,
Yeah.
for the actual process, which took a lot longer than I thought it would, and it was a pretty terrible experience. We
Oh,
had wonderful hospice care, we had wonderful nurses, but there's a time where his heart's beating and his lungs are moving, but he isn't there.
right.
And it really hit me was when he had this feeding tube that went right into his stomach. And throughout the years, just, it was always panic mode whenever that falls out because if it closes up, then
Of
another surgery
course.
is needed. And it's always been this thing. And I just
Risk of
never forget.
infection. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just never forget there was this moment of um, it kind of coming out or it was in the way or something. And it was Danielle and her sister Tracy. And they said, well, maybe we should just take it out. And that was just difficult in that moment
Yeah.
because it just meant the fight is over.
Right.
This is it.
Right.
And then a few days later, um, Danielle was having a tough emotional time. I said, sweetheart, just go sleep in the other room. I'll lay with Ethan. And I woke up to the nurse touch, and she just said, I'm sorry.
He's gone.
Sorry. And he was gone.
Wow.
But then
So,
they came and they
yeah.
they 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 took Ethan out of the house and it was raining.
Mm.
And they drove away and that was the last time we saw him.
Wow.
But
I'm, yeah. I'm
but
so, I mean,
as
he,
we're grieving, it's also another component of this is Liam's grief.
of
And it's
course,
it's he misses his brother, and then we noticed when we'd watch certain movies, we'd watch Lion King, and then all of a sudden he was happy when Mufasa died, and we'd say, well, why concerned about this? Like, why are you happy Mufasa died? Well, now Mufasa could be with Ethan.
right. Because he
And then
doesn't
watch the
cognitively understand.
Avengers, watch other movies. It's the same thing. And then of course, lo and behold, we're near the holidays, and for anybody that's lost a child, I recommend not watching this movie. It's with Jack Black. It's called Dear Santa. And of
Oh, no.
course,
Yeah.
we know nothing about this. It's just a Christmas movie.
It's not just a
And
Christmas.
it's a little boy that his little brother died. And then of course at the end of the movie, Santa brings his little brother back. And now there's a whole nother explanation that needs to happen. And when he writes his Christmas note, it's, I want my little brother
Oh, wow.
back.
Right.
And it's just It's these things that are so innocent to us as we're living our life and doing our things that you don't probably think twice about. And, we can't be in a culture where we're oversensitive, where, it chills everything, which is kind of where we're about. So I'm not saying that this is some sort of bad, awful, unthoughtful movie, but for people like us, yeah, it kind of affects us.
100%.
Uh,
Right.
Because now not only are you just getting through the holiday, right? And was this even
Mhm.
like, was this your first holiday without
Second,
Ethan? Second,
second.
right.
second, second.
Still difficult, okay?
Right.
You're still having to navigate the murkiest waters with Liam.
Mhm.
And so when he's at 8 years old watching these movies that are just movies, he still doesn't understand what, like, yeah, right? Like what death is. Like he sees that and like, oh, let's go to the portal. Those are, I mean, perfect answers for his age,
Right.
right? I mean, it makes sense that he would say, because he's got this magical thinking, he's got this magical brain. He just wants it to be like the movies.
Mhm.
And yet here you're not only navigating your grief, your sadness, your foundation, you're still having to navigate a child who is living with the same illness that Ethan just passed from
Yes,
and
the
wants his little
second
brother back.
year with the first years, you get the most, people are show up the most, they're here, the most attention, the most support. And I've read on a lot of articles and a lot of podcasts, the second year is actually the hardest
Artist.
because you're left to kind of navigate on your own. And then the additional layers that are unforeseen, our in-laws showed them this movie innocently,
Of course.
can't blame them, but
It's just a Christmas movie.
Right.
then it begs the question, what's next? What are the next layers to this that we can't foresee ourselves? We can't prepare for it. He's aware at school that he's different. Luckily, kids these days are extremely understanding and
Which is
welcoming and
amazing. I
kind.
love to hear that because you would
Oh,
not think in this world today that they are. So I love to hear
his
that.
school is wonderful. His teachers loves his teacher, which warms my heart. Um,
And also, I guess, take a sense of understanding of the progression of the disease and the relevance of what we're speaking about. Just to take briefly, just a step back to go forward is um, the disease is a telomere disease. Everyone could Google that, take a look at that, but
What is it?
ultimately, a telomere disease. Uh,
Telomere. Okay.
so in the nucleus of every cell of your body, you have DNA strands wrapped around proteins called chromosomes. Chromosomes are uncircular in nature, they have endpoints. Now, similar to the plastic tip of your shoelace on your gym shoes that protect the integrity of that shoelace, that's the role of the telomere on the tips of those chromosomal
Okay.
strands. Now, in a healthy person, every day you have millions of cells that die off. The reason you're still here is through cellular division. Every time the cells divide in a healthy person, the integrity of this telomere gets shorter and shorter. Eventually, the DNA is not as good getting passed down from life cycle to life cycle.
Mm,
It's why we get white hair. It's why we get wrinkles. It's why we age. It's a big
okay.
marker of that. A lot of longevity experts are speaking about this nowadays. Now, unfortunately, because our children have a genetic mutation in the CTC1 gene that plays an important role in the regulation of telomeres, our children's cells are dying quicker.
Mm,
So because of that, every cell in their body is compromised, and you're going to see certain outputs based on certain dysfunctions.
okay.
So, for instance, the endothelial system, which lines all the veins in your body, um, because those are dysfunctioning, when they go to create additional blood vessels in the body, this process called angiogenesis, those new blood vessels are bleeding.
Mm,
Causes swelling in the eyes, retinal detachment and blindness. In the brain, it causes calcifications and cysts, adds to leukodystrophy. Eventually, it causes GI tract bleeding, which is fatal, and that's how we lost Ethan.
gotcha.
Now, another thing that this happens is that those particular cells line the veins, called the endothelial cells, also create and maintain the brain-blood barrier.
Okay.
When the endothelial system is compromised, that brain-blood barrier collapses, becomes susceptible, and leads to a leukodystrophy. Leukodystrophy is the destruction of the white matter in the brain, the myelin,
Mm,
and leads to cognitive impairment
okay.
and coordination issues. Now, through our efforts through the Coats Plus Foundation, we found a drug for off-label use, which is an anti-VEGF drug. Now, this drug was initially a brain cancer drug, ends up being used for macular degeneration in the
Generation,
eyes.
right.
We're giving it to him intravenously. And through this process, we got rid of the bad blood vessels.
Wow.
So his brain is stabilized, his eyes are stabilized, the vascular texture of his body is stabilized. Now, this is a band-aid. This is not a cure,
Okay.
right? So we're also utilizing stem cells, which we had to go to Cabo for. We had to go to San Francisco, well, pretty soon next week for a third time. And eventually we're going to be able to get the same stem cell treatment here locally in Florida at the beginning of next year.
And where do you
To,
get the stem
to
cells from? Like, is it from donors? Like, what is that?
well, there's a company there's a company that creates these what they're called Muse stem cells, which stands for multi-lineage stress enduring stem cells. These stem cells are from umbilical cord tissue, but they're
Oh,
manipulated to be
right.
more effective.
Okay.
Initially, they were harvested in Lithuania and I believe Japan, but now there's a couple plants going to be used stateside, which now increases our access in Florida to be able to get these stem cell treatments here.
So is that
So,
because if you save like the stem cell of like the umbilical cords, like blood cord registry and things like that, like you save the umbilical cord?
well, what's interesting, you're asking actually great questions
Because I
because
did that with both my kids. If you
yeah,
need,
Oh,
these these
really?
I
these
don't.
are these are great questions, and actually this might be something good for your audience to listen to as well. Is that initial stem cells, when you go to put them in another person, or they'd have to be you don't want to trigger an autoimmune response.
Okay.
That's why having your own stem cells made sense at the time.
Okay.
Also, it might trigger if you use other stem cells from elsewhere. It might trigger tumors and potential for cancer.
Mm,
And also, because they were 2D in nature, not 3D, they would get caught in the lungs. So for all these stem cells infused, only 2 to 5% would get to where they're supposed to go with traditional stem cells.
okay.
Now, through technology, CRISPR technology, and other type forms of manipulation of these particular stem cells, they are now multi-lineage stress enduring, which means that, well, they're no longer 2D, they're 3D.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
which means they're not getting caught in the lungs. So now 50 to 70% are homing to where they're supposed to go.
Okay.
It doesn't trigger an autoimmune response. And so you don't have to be donor specific or aligned,
Okay.
and also does not cause cancer. So that's the beauty of these Muse stem cells is the fact they could just create a factory and just keep harvesting them, and everyone could use them without the need to bank their own tissues.
Okay.
So that's the relevance of these, and they've been working wonders for my child. We just need to figure out a way to get more infusions for him.
Okay.
But what's interesting though is that the drug we're using for off-label use not only got rid of the bad blood vessels, it also um, stabilized his brain-blood barrier, got rid of the inflammation. So unfortunately, we were actually panicking pretty recently because when you see your child's walk start to decline, you're saying we're giving them all the stuff. What's going on here? And you start getting
Right.
in panic mode. And yes, it's still sad, but it turns out that when it comes to a leukodystrophy, it doesn't mean active degeneration is happening. This is the bill coming due from the previous damage.
Okay.
So that's what we're observing. So, but there's presumptively going to be a time where we'll stop seeing this leukodystrophy aspect. Again, it's not a cure. We have to
Why
figure
is
out
it not
something
a cure
else.
though? If it
It's
stopped
not
that, if it changed the
it's when
brain.
you have a multi-systemic disease
Mm-hmm.
because you have deteriorating cells all over his body. You'll
Okay.
see certain outputs in one system and other systems it may not solve for. For instance, he has bone density issues where he's starting to lose his density.
Okay.
Other children have had fractures. Some kids have had to have legs amputated and stuff like that with this disease. It's a pretty awful disease.
Hmm.
There's also discosa, what's it called this,
Dyskeratosa congenita, or DC it's called for
Mm-hmm.
short,
right, where it's bone marrow failure at a certain
which
point,
is also telomere disease.
which is also
Similar but very different.
Okay.
so correct. And then also, unfortunately, when it comes to the GI tract bleeds, which are fatal, it's one part the bad blood vessels, another part the mucous membrane. There's turnover between every 2 to 5 days. You have a completely new mucous membrane in your GI tract,
Right.
which in your lining, which means that there's rapid division of cells, and with rapid division of cells, you're going to see degradation happen quicker. So that's why it's not a cure, is because we're getting attacked from all angles.
Gotcha. Okay.
And also, well, anyhow, but the thing is this: if we took no action
None of
and
it.
we're just resigned, to the fate that we were given,
Right.
his lifespan would have been between 7 and 12 years. Because of the Avastin, we're talking more 15 to 18.
Oh, wow.
Well, you know those we're
Well,
talking to.
I know this from talking to the doctors because right now we're formulating a treatment plan for him.
It's
And
awesome.
part of the discussion is we're likely going to have to do um, take his stem cells, put them in a petri dish ex vivo outside the body, manipulate them, bring his current stem cells in his body down, put those corrected stem cells into his bone marrow, rebuild the body where now the bone marrow is now replicating correct cells throughout his body. So if that's able to happen, well, it's a scary procedure. But if we get through that procedure, we've now corrected the bone marrow, we've now corrected the vascular texture of his body. Lifespan 40 years.
Wow.
If And at that point in time, once the vascular texture is stabilized, and once the bone marrow is now proliferating healthy stem cells for his body, he is now stable enough for us to execute other gene therapies to other targeted parts of his body.
Gotcha.
Lifespan 80, a healthy lifespan. So that's the part we're pushing for. But I'm telling you something, we would not be here now if we just did nothing.
Right.
It's tough enough to get one doctor that says yes to creating a gene therapy. We have two gene therapy doctors on our team. We have one that's leading and other person that's collaborating, which is
That's
highly intelligent
amazing.
individual. We also have some other scientists that are involved as well, and we've created this orbit. But now we're starting to have everything that was theoretical, like, oh, I'd love to save our kid, or what's this going to look like? It's now becoming tangible and real. We are now having real strategies that are being discussed to save Liam's life. And now we just have to raise between $3 and $5 million
So let's talk
because
about
that's
that
the
because
access gap.
I know like Danielle, you have to get going in a little bit too, but let's talk about that.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
talk about how do you raise that funds? Because I think this is so important. I mean, I'm going to get to if we have enough time to
Yeah.
like how you guys navigate. We did talk a little bit about that, like that relationship. And I think that you said it so perfectly is that like you both respected like your fixing mode, your emotional mode. And like
Mhm.
like when you were wanting to probably just like stay in bed, put the covers over your head and do nothing. He's like, nope, we're getting it. We're doing. Allowed you to be sad, but we're doing. So it's like that balance and that dialect of like we could have two truths that can exist at the same time.
Yes.
And but
Yes.
what I'm sensing is that both of you were so willing to accept what the other one's strength was. It
Yes.
wasn't
With
like you have to do
doing
it
this
my way.
alone it would have been impossible.
Right.
Pretty
So
absurd.
okay, so let's get to, I mean, in some ways, and this is like my spiritual thinking. I'm like, look, I was a hospice social worker for two
Oh,
years,
wow.
okay?
Wow.
And the things that I saw in the care center, if somebody told me those were the things like that that happened to them, I would never have believed them. So I'm gonna just go back to,
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure that Ethan wanted you out of the room. Like he wanted
100%.
to spare you
I was
of
there
that.
every night except the last
Correct.
night.
And so,
That's
as
how
a
it worked
hospice
out.
social worker who worked with
Yes.
the end of life for 2 years
Mm.
and saw a lot, like I saw that, and also like, I mean, in some ways, look at it's hard to even think this way, but also to say it out loud, like, look at the gift that Ethan has given Liam and the rest of the country because you
Yes.
guys were chosen to be his parents.
Right.
He was not chosen other parents. You guys were chosen because you had the ability to do what needed to be done to change the world, to give
It
people,
took a lot to get to that point. And
yeah,
I get why so many people cannot accept that or even hear
100%.
that. It took years for me
I mean,
to accept that.
not to be overly morbid, but on his headstone it says a smile that lit up the world and sparked a mission.
100%.
And
I
that's
love
and that's
that.
how we feel.
To get to that point takes a lot. It because you fall into the why me, why
Of
him, why
course.
them. What, God is punishing me. God hates me. What did I do in
Yeah.
a past life? And then the spiral, the spiritual part, I was telling everyone at the retreat how I'm studying Kabbalah,
Yeah.
and it's opened my world to a lot of amazing you know, ideas. But if you can somehow wrap your mind around that this is happening for me and through us,
Right.
not merely by coincidence, and that it is in some way for the higher and better good of us and the world,
Absolutely.
it you can just go so much further with it
Yeah.
and do something with it. But I respect the people 100% that cannot. I get why they
Yeah.
can't, but our path is different. We
Right.
have chosen deliberately to
But
make a mission out of
I
it.
think that's the piece right there, Danielle. And as a DBT therapist, right? Like I teach people, sometimes you don't know why things in life happen, right? Like I'm never going to know why my cousin who at 20 years after having a heart was just given a clean bill of health,
Mm,
died 2 months
mm.
after her. They said, well, no reason. There's
Right?
Sorry.
no
It
reason,
doesn't
right?
make
But
Sorry.
sense in the
you have to
moment.
find a meaning.
Doesn't make
So if you can't get to that meaning, I tell people, even creating a meaning that fits and resonates with you, that might take it's never going to, your grief, no matter how many kids you save, is never going to be gone. You're never going to not miss Ethan. Every day you're going to think about him. So
yeah.
for the parents who are like struggling, oh, how can I be happy? And like they don't have to, it's not either or. It can be both and, right? Like I
Yes.
can miss Ethan and smile with Liam and dance and do these things and listen to music and fight this battle, right?
And
Sometimes
it
it is an
forces you
active
to.
choice. Sometimes it's an active choice to get up out of bed every day.
Yes,
It is.
it is.
It's a choice, and I believe that while our mission is laser focused on saving our child, as we step more into this rare disease community, we're seeing so much more that could be done.
Right.
And if we could create a framework, and there's wonderful organizations out there that need help, that need volunteers, National Organization of Rare Disease, there's other ones, but I mean, if we could be aligned with and organized within the rare disease community, and we could make it easier for those parents that are scared, that feel like they have nothing,
Yeah.
to say yes and say you are supported, you are not alone, but we need you to walk this path and we need you to build up. If we could create an opportunity for more parents to walk that fire, we could collectively change the world. And I
Yeah.
believe that's a big part of our
a,
mission.
a
So
quick
let's talk about
perfect
the mission.
example of that.
Yeah.
Perfect example is our neurologist put us in touch with another rare disease mom who's a psychologist. And she's
Mm,
like, "Do you want to make a friend today?" And I work with her at the hospital. So we're friendly already. And she's in the same boat. She has no idea what to do, but she's like, "I'm doing something with gene therapy." And together we're like, we need this support group. So I'm sure it evolves into something if you
yeah.
collaborate. You're so much stronger with numbers than alone.
Yeah.
And it's something we didn't have, so we must
So do you
therefore.
have a support group open for parents of rare
We
disease?
have not in it. That was just something her and I
We're going to talk.
briefly.
We are going to talk
Yeah,
later
yeah.
This,
because I'm all about helping you out to do that,
Ah,
to get that
this,
thank
moving.
you. That's so sweet.
this is a natural, steps that we're taking as I'm getting connected with other rare disease parents as well. We have a formation of parents that have been taking that action that see this too. Um, and it's just about phases, right?
Right.
We could do anything what we want in this world, but we can't do it all. And sometimes we have to phase certain things out. Do I want to run 100 miles an hour towards these groups and getting it done tomorrow?
Mm.
Absolutely. But I also know if I do that, it gets my off the ball of trying to save my own son.
Of course.
But I know the time is going to come where this is going to be something that's going to evolve and that's going to start growing and
Yeah.
becoming very real.
Yeah.
So talk about how we can help get the word out so people can raise money for all this hard work that you're doing.
Well, what they could do is they could go to coatesplus.org.
Mm-hmm.
You could see a donation tab if you want to donate to our cause. It's going to go towards great things. By the way, the technology we're developing isn't just for this one child, one rare disease. The technology needs to be developed to save our child could affect the entire rare disease community,
Right.
age-related diseases, as well as longevity interests. So that's something that is exciting that's formulating within the talks that we're having. Also, if anybody happens to be in South Florida and wants to come down on January 17th, we're having a big casino night.
Yep.
350 people. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to go towards our cause. So if anybody's interested in that, feel free to reach out to me. My email address is Bryan, spelled Bryan, at coatesplusfoundation.com.
I'm writing this down because I'm going to put in my show notes. It will be in my
Mhm.
show notes also.
Thank
So
you.
Bryan, Bryan at coatsplusfoundation.com.
Yes.
January 17th. Yeah, I'm waiting for my flyer from my good friend Danielle. She's going to
I
get me an
know.
e-flyer because
We
it's
It's
already,
finished
coming. We
another.
should have it today.
Oh,
oh,
really?
yay, because
Get it
Good.
done today.
it's
Amazing. I
already in
didn't
my
know.
calendar, in my
It's
new
in
calendar. But
Parkland. If
yep,
anyone's in the area, we're going to have a calendar of events for 2026, and we're just
perfect.
getting the ball rolling here. We have a
Love it.
lot coming, big mission, but I mean, there's going to be big payoff. I know it. I feel it. I have certainty.
Right.
Um, but it's putting in the effort too, and then surrendering to
That's right.
the forces. I mean,
Just
Yeah.
one day at a time, one step at a time. Just keep moving forward.
Well, I so appreciate the two of you. And I think if anybody is listening, watching this, because it's going to be on all the platforms that I'm listed at, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple, but I also will post this video, the visual piece where people can see. And I think that if they watch it also, not only will they get to see like the true like love, and I just met you today, Bryan, but like you could feel the teamwork. And I think that I could speak as a therapist who has worked with grief and loss, who's experienced it from my own family. If you don't have that teamwork and it's about anger towards each other and the anger that this happened and trying to like there's no
now
blame.
he's touching me.
Yeah. No, I saw him kind of under there, like grab your hand.
Under the
I could
under the
only sense
camera
where his arm
here.
went, right? But like I think that it's important and people don't realize like you don't have to find blame to have a change, right? If you guys
I would have
both
gotten us nowhere
got
here.
stuck at whose fault this is, where was it your DNA, his DNA, like all this,
Yeah,
and the fighting back and forth, you would not be where you are today.
might not be.
It would have sucked
And
the energy
and
out
I
of our
mean,
lives.
and full transparency, it's in for anybody else going through this or any tough times and maybe having some angst with their significant other. There were very difficult times in our relationship for significant periods of time.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
we were just blessed in the sense that we were able to get through those times together. But most importantly, I think that when people are authentic and it's not about ego and owning kind of the way we were in a certain period of time, but the other person also gives them grace and
Yep.
understanding that they are walking a mission too and journey, and that's how they happen to deal with it at that point of time. You get to a place of forgiveness.
Yep.
And in that forgiveness, there's a path to move forward. Danielle and I aren't here because we just and we are just people that are different. We are just like everyone else. We have our struggles, but because we were intentional about it and because both of us were able to own it
Yeah.
and we both were able to find grace and understanding in the other person, that's why we're here and that's why it works.
And we went
Yeah.
to marriage counseling too, which
But I think that's important to
wow,
be spoken of. Like a lot of people
yes,
think,
Yeah.
oh,
it's
it's just easy because
amazing.
we'll just do it.
Yeah,
No,
it was
it is
not. No,
no,
there are
because
layers of resentment and different personalities.
of course,
And where are you? I need you here, but he's trying to like form a foundation, and
right.
we'll just spend time with us if our time is limited. And
Right. And
it's
balancing
not
having another child that you have to take care of too. I
right.
mean, there's,
And work and
yep, and
keep the roof over our
exactly.
head and
And I think that's the
it's
piece of,
layered.
aside from just like everybody needs to donate, donate, donate. I'm actually going to look forward because I'm confident that at some point you're going to find a cure for all of this. And like that's going to help not just Coats Plus syndrome, but you're going to find like that maybe you just even change the name from Coats Plus syndrome to like something that's going to represent
Something more
like,
catchy.
yeah, like Ethan and Liam and like you guys and just like,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, change
Yeah.
the whole brand.
I mean,
Branding. That's
that's
a whole other
not a bad idea. I'd have to
conversation.
find the technical ways to change the inputs plus internationally.
Hey,
We'll
you
figure it
you
out.
are
But
that family that's gonna help find this cure. You are already
Oh,
doing
that's
things.
great.
I'm confident. But I think
Why
that
not?
the takeaway aside from just like how important it is to just like work towards getting, taking your sadness and your grief and applying it and putting it into something else is so important. I think that people need to realize, and hopefully my listeners will learn that I can't imagine anything worse in this world than having to bury a child. And if you can get through this, and
Yeah.
you will get through anything and everything in life. And, you know, the takeaway is that things can change. You don't have to sit in the sadness, even when you are sad. Because I don't, and I mean, hopefully people, when they ask you about your kids, if they hear this, they're going to learn that like it's okay to say, "Oh my God, you know what? I'd love to hear your story when you're ready and like tell me about your kids."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, no, I like talking about it and them and him. It's not
yeah,
you have to shy away from
no,
people
it's
need to honor their memory by speaking about them.
100%. And I think that it's so important. So excited about meeting Liam because I told you I went
Yes,
at that
he's
breakfast
a
set. I'm going to
character.
come over one day and you're going to go out for the day and I'm going to help and like
She wants to babysit. She
just
wants to
Deal.
babysit. Like
babysit.
I'm
And
empty nesting, guys. Like I don't
I
have like
know
I
she
told
wants
you, like I'm on the other end of like my kids are at college. Like so I have a lot more free time than you probably do, right? So like
Well, hey, come join us in the foundation. We'd love
yeah,
hey,
for sure.
you just might get somebody there.
Okay,
All
cool.
right.
Thank
So
you.
I so appreciate the two of you. I really
Appreciate
do. And
you.
I really appreciate you sharing your story because I know this is going to impact many people. So for
Thank you.
those of you that are part of a rare disease family that you have no idea where you turn to, I'm going to put this in my show notes, Brian's email. I'm also going to put the website of Coates Plus Syndrome where you can also donate. You can follow along so that
Yeah,
you can join some events that they're having to raise money. And
yeah.
if you are somebody, I don't know if you guys are having a silent auction, maybe somebody's going to listen to this and they may want to just donate
Great.
things
Yeah.
for your silent auction.
Yeah.
That'd be
We do a
great.
lot.
Yeah. We
We're
have a
about
lot.
to leave, and I'm going to ask you, but I'm going to ask maybe put you on spot.
Yeah.
So my husband and I are leaving tomorrow because every year we do we do the half marathon for St. Jude. My husband and his company is very
Um,
connected with St. Jude. They do a lot of donating and a lot of charities for that, events for that as well. So but I would love to have Ethan and Liam's name on the back of my shirt. I'm going to handwrite it if
Great.
you
of
guys are
course.
good for that
Of
and put
course.
like the organization and all of that
Yes,
because I think it's
please.
important. People, listen, I may walk and run it because I have not really run this year, but there are going to be people behind me that are going to see my
Yeah,
shirt
yeah,
and they
I would
may
really
stop and
appreciate
ask.
that. That's
So,
That'd be great. It's
beautiful.
beautiful.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
that.
no, yeah, of course, because it needs to get out.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you. So,
Appreciate
for
it.
all of you listening, thank you so much for listening and tuning into Perfectly Imperfect Me 365. I'm your host, Rachel, and Brian and Danielle, thank you so much for sharing your journey and
Our
everything that
pleasure.
you
Our
do.
pleasure.
All right, guys.
All right. Take care.